So we are back in chapter 21. So there are 28 chapters. So
28.
yeah. So we're getting there. Just as so I've been thinking about what we're gonna do. So there's two things I think coming up next is what we're looking at. Is I want to do a quick 5-week Christmas Bible study. So I want to do the Christmas story, because we never do the Christmas story in kind of an academic sort of like an Bible study way. So it'll probably be 4 weeks maybe. So we'll figure that out. So and we're coming up to the end of Acts. And the next thing is when we go into the new year, I'm thinking there's a program called what's called E100, Essential 100, and basically they break down 100 readings from Genesis to Revelation, so that you get the entire arc of the Bible and the entire story of the Bible. And so you basically read it in 100 days. So it would essentially be a preparation for Lent, because it would be through Epiphany and then the beginning of Lent. So it would be kind of getting us into Lent. So and it's really it's like 2 pages a day. It's not really heavy reading, and I think the goal would be is I just have a little huddle, probably in Bogle Chapel after worship, so to kind of talk about the week's readings and say, like, hey, did you have any questions? Was there, just to kind of keep us at just a little accountability kind of time.
And it's the actual Bible that we're reading.
So it's the actual Bible. It's just it's just these selections through and through the so that.
And you'll give us that printout.
Yeah, I'll give you the whole printout. You'll have the folder, the whole thing, cool. so that way. So those are the two things I'm thinking. Does that sound horrible?
That sounds great for me on Sunday.
Okay.
Because I have Friday.
Yep. So. Yeah, so that's
pick her up after church.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I'll work that out.
So.
Yeah, I'll make it when I can.
Yeah,
But I still want that.
But I mean the
printout.
reading, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a self-guided reading
It all
kind of thing.
depends
So,
on
or that's a thing we could do. We could also do that. We could do that on.
What do you want?
Digitally too.
Oh,
That's possible
digitally.
too. We could do it. We could do it Zoom, or we could do it on call, or we could do it hybrid. So that, but we can talk about that as we go forward. We don't have to we could do it. Some gather, and then we could do a kind of a hybrid format, something like that.
Yeah, and you're gonna post it anyway. Like you're gonna put it up. Will you do the same thing?
I don't know if I will for the E100, but we will for the other one,
Right,
for
but
sure.
not
Yeah.
the
Yeah, it's just one of those, like, it's it's a constant,
Right.
like, it's a constant flow of reading and discussion and stuff. So that may or may not, but
I just have to, if I can,
yeah.
if I can get him to commit. I don't know if I can. But.
All right. So.
Well, it
I
depends on
love
his
that
mood.
idea of though doing like getting that over.
Yeah, and it's really helpful because you don't get bogged down in Levitical law, in 13 and 20 pages of Levitical law,
The worst
where
is
you lose the plot. So it's really a great way to get the actual, like, the story of the Bible, to understand from beginning to end what's going on. Why is it
still like you do? Does it do connecting, like from the old into the new?
Yes, it's the whole, like, great. It's
Okay.
the whole arc, the whole narrative arc. So
Okay.
yeah, and then you can go read that stuff if you want, but then it makes sense because you have it in context of
Gotcha.
where it is.
All right.
So,
Well, I'm definitely
yeah.
if I don't know how often I can come to the discussion, but I will do
Yeah.
probably every other
I'm not-
Sunday, like
yeah.
my mom, like we've been doing now. But
I'm not locked into any of those times or
Right.
anything, so I'm just
Throwing
throwing
out,
stuff
yeah.
out. So
Throwing it on the
so
wall.
if anybody has
See what
suggestions or
sticks.
times you think it would be good, or like I'll meet in the morning before work. Like, I got no, like, whatever anybody wants to do. So I'm wide open. But I just wanted to throw that out there, kind of to be some things to think about as we're starting to. We are going to end Acts one day. So
I was telling my friend Shani, I'm like, hey, I said this is probably the last class. I said to myself.
I think those extras would be important to us too, because even though I said I've read it through twice, I can't remember like what everything was. So to be able to have those references,
Exactly.
say if I'm thinking about that, yeah, that's where to go.
and it's cool because it does, because it's really easy to get, as you've read, if you read Bible, like it gets easy to get into the weeds
Yeah.
fast of like once you get into like the genealogies and
That's the
Levitical law
worst,
and all that
the
sort of stuff,
genealogies.
and all that stuff is key, but
It is,
it's
awful.
when you're trying to first figure out, like, it assumes you have a narrative text, and if you don't have that, like, so to be able to get the story, and then be
Right.
able to think, oh, this is how these things plug into the story,
Right.
it's
Well, that's why I like coming here, because you plug it in.
Right.
Not for nothing.
Exactly.
And it is one continuous plot.
it is.
From beginning to end,
Exactly.
and it's still going on, I think.
Exactly. Well, it is. That's
So-
that's kind of why the Book of Acts
So
is
the
the way it
creation's
is.
not over. It won't be over until the lion lays down the lambs.
Right. Okay. So, Paul has been on his way to Jerusalem. He has been told any number of times, "Don't go to Jerusalem." So, what does Paul do? He goes to Jerusalem. So he's hellbound for leather because he wants to celebrate Pentecost, and he wants to see the other brothers in faith and all of that. So he is on his way to celebrate Pentecost, and he's just so he came from
Ephesus.
yeah. So he came from Ephesus. They kind of bopped down the coast. Again, they remember our friend Agabus. Told him don't go to Jerusalem, and so Paul's response, God's will be done, and so off he goes. So
Where are we?
verse 17,
Of
chapter
21?
21. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
So when we arrived in Jerusalem, the brothers welcomed us warmly. The next day, Paul went with us and to visit James, and all the elders were present. So James is the Grand Poobah of Jerusalem. So he's the Bishop of Jerusalem, as you would call it, or he's the head of the Church of Jerusalem. And so there's James, and then all the elders. So we've got a lot of the original deacons are there. A lot of the other disciples are there. So so after greeting them, he related one by one the things which God had done among the Gentiles through his ministry. And when they heard it, they praised God. And then they said to him, "You see, brother, how many thousands of believers there are among the Jews, and they are all zealous for the law. They have been told about you, that you teach all the Jews living among the Gentiles to forsake Moses, and that you tell them not to circumcise their children or observe the customs. What then is to be done? They will certainly hear that you have come." So Paul has been on the other side of the ice wall. To use a good Game of Thrones reference, he's been out there among the wild people, among the Gentiles, and now he's come back to Jerusalem. And Jerusalem is like, yeah, good job, but the Jews here are not going to be excited to hear this,
Right.
because they consider him an apostate. They consider him, because he's not having them keep the Jewish law. Like, he's not, okay, they want to follow this Jesus prophet guy, that's one thing, but they're not, but you're bringing them in, but they're not being circumcised, they're not keeping kosher, they're not actually converting to Judaism. So you're creating this, seemingly creating this third thing, and so the Jews are going to be upset with us.
They still don't get it.
Well, they get it, but they're afraid. Like they're
They're afraid you've been telling them to turn away from Moses.
yeah.
But God wants you to turn away from Moses. Because it's not about the law, it's about the heart.
Well, yeah, but it's not. These were never followers of Moses. The thing is this is Paul's point: is the Gentiles were never followers of Moses to begin with,
Right.
and so he says they're becoming followers of Jesus, and the Holy Spirit is moving because of the fact that the Holy Spirit is moving, and the covenant that was just for the Israelites is now for all peoples, and that as they hear the good news of Jesus, they're coming to that. What Paul's point is that just the same as Peter's point, they don't have to become Jews to come through the Jewish path to do that, because they were never Jews to begin with.
The reason I said what I said
Yeah.
is what it said in 21. They have been told that he teach all the Jews who live among the Gentiles to turn away from Moses. So they're thinking that he's been telling the Jews to turn away from Moses, but that's not what he did.
Right. That's what the Jews in Jerusalem are
think
are
that's
going
what they- that's
to
what
are going to
reported
right,
to
are
them.
going to accuse him of, and
Right.
that's what James and the elders are like. Dude, they think you've been out there. Like we know because we were at the, we were at the confab. We were at the first council
Yeah.
when we made the decision to say, okay, because if you remember, James actually spoke in favor of Gentiles not
Yes.
having to be
Yep.
circumcised in the church. So James is on board, but he's like,
Sorry.
since you've been no, you're great because it's a key point that he says, but since you've been gone, the Jews have been saying all these things, and
Right.
we're and the fact that you're back, this may go
The
poorly.
rumor mill has been a swirl.
Right, exactly, and because
He's just warning. This is what you're going to face. This
right,
is-
exactly, and like, is this any different than anywhere Paul has been so far?
Yeah.
There's always somebody cranking the handle, right?
Right,
There's
right,
always
right.
somebody out there saying, "Hey, he's stirring up trouble," like
Right,
so. So this
They're
is
always out to get him.
so Paul. Paul already has this T-shirt, so
But it's interesting from the Jews' perspective that you could certainly understand why they would be asking these questions. And so, okay, you're saying the Gentiles don't need to be circumcised or keep kosher, but what about us Jews that may want to? And so,
Or
kind
do
of,
we have to
what
now?
is this? That's right. What
Right.
does this entity look like for us?
Right.
And are you asking us to do something different that we've done for hundreds of years? There's resistance to that,
Right.
understandably, but it doesn't sound like, or at least we haven't read with either Peter or Paul talking about no Jews, you have to stop doing the circumcision, you have to stop. We haven't
no.
read any of that.
Oh
They're
no,
not
I mean
saying
Paul
any
is
of that.
keeping Remember, Paul is keeping a Nazirite vow. So
Yeah.
he's not only he's like being
He's
super
really
Jew,
living the
like
Jewish
he's
law, yeah.
like he's not
He's
just keeping the
super
Jewish. Like I mean, he's being like I
He's
mean
got the
he's
T-shirt and the cape.
exactly he's like he's taken on extra vows even within the discipline of Judaism. But remember, there's no break for Paul and for all of the Jews that are coming to Jesus. There's no break in this. We've been waiting for the Messiah. We've been prophesying the Messiah. We have these 143 things or whatever they are. I can't remember how many, something like that point to what the Messiah is going to look like. We found them all in Jesus. And that we found that he is in fact the Messiah. We found that and so for them it's it's straight continuity. There's no, they're not changing a thing really, other than the fact that because part of the coming of the Messiah, and we haven't talked about this maybe as much as we should have, but part of the coming of the Messiah is that, and this is, boy, Deuteronomy somewhere, but it is that the covenant is, when the covenant is fulfilled for the Jews with the coming of the Messiah, it is then going to come to the Gentiles as well. So there's this way in which there's going to be this, that it also becomes that the coming of the Messiah is also the coming of the covenant to all of creation. And so this is, we talked about this before a little bit, right? Okay, yeah. So that this is what this really, so it really means that, so it's a natural expectation that what Peter saw with the great picnic in the sky, what is happening with the Greeks that are coming to Paul and are finding their way. Like, that's a natural thing that should be happening if Jesus is the Messiah. Like, but the thing is these are people. So remember, the other thing is we have to remember how close we are. Like, we're still probably in the late 40s here. So
Right.
all of these people in Jerusalem, what did they do?
They
that
ran.
are in power.
Yeah. Oh, they didn't. They
crucified.
They
Crucified,
crucified
yeah.
Jesus, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't that long ago.
Right.
So it's like, not recognizing the Messiah, this guy who was resurrected, the guy who thousands of people in
Right.
town saw walking among them, who saw the dead rise out of the grave, who saw earthquakes, who saw, all the things, even the Romans got scared, like, who saw that whole thing, and they lived through that, largely. they're pretty stiff-necked at this point. Like
They're
the
right.
Jerusalem, particularly the Jerusalem cloud, you know, like
Right.
they've got, and kind of what I was trying to get at Sunday, and Sunday's sermon was so awful, but like what I was trying to get at Sunday was really you know, that is like that's the whole point of them, of the Jews that aren't now following Jesus really have another reason to do so. They really have and it's not, they aren't good reasons. They're because they want to continue to exploit their fellow countrymen, because they want to continue to retain power, because they like their lickies and chewies and their fancy pants. That they're really not, you know, and
And
so
their life of sin.
right, and yeah, exactly. Like and I mean, particularly if we're talking about like the Herodians,
Right.
you know, like those guys are just, I mean, they're just straight up debauched.
Yep.
You know, the Sadducees are kind of the frozen chosen. The everybody's got a piece of the pie, and nobody wants. And
everything about what what Jesus taught, like that everybody is an equal and everybody is meant, you know, is just as worthy as the next person, is exactly what they don't want. There's like a hierarchy there.
Absolutely.
They
Right.
don't want that to be spoiled. So
You
Right.
didn't chosen once.
Yeah.
Something else I gotta say too, I'll be the dead horse, about circumcision,
Mhm.
as even the Gentiles do circumcision to this day. Like, when a baby's born in this country, the boys are circumcised.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's everywhere, right?
In the United States it is.
Yeah.
And actually that's a good thing.
Actually, not all
It's
places.
it's shifted more. Yeah, it's shifted recently.
It's
Yeah.
shifted. It's
Yep.
certainly not.
That's
I personally have no problem with it.
just-
I don't know what to say. What do we? I don't know
Well,
what
the
to
American
say.
Academy of Pediatrics, the American Academy of Pediatrics for a long time was recommending
Right.
it for hygienic and
Right.
infection control and all
That's
of
right.
that. And then they reversed that.
Really?
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so people now have more of a individual
Like a
preference.
free will type
An
thing.
individual
Yeah.
choice,
Yep.
and a lot of people are choosing not to.
Yep.
Regardless, it's not a religious decision, it's just,
Mhm.
Long discussion. I'm gonna say in days of my youth, I think in the
well, I could
50s
just
when I
speak
was
for
Yeah.
born.
North Israel Deaconess Medical Center, OB nursery, that's my.
Yeah, right. I was gonna say we're in your wheelhouse, so like exactly, like we are
I'm
solidly in
saying
your
this
wheelhouse.
today,
Yeah.
but in my youth, in the 50s when I was growing up,
Yeah.
that was the norm.
It was
Yeah.
absolutely no, and it has
I have no
culture
idea.
shifted.
I
And
have
I'll tell you, as a
brothers.
person who used to put in catheters, they had to clean up cheesy wankers. It's very much clean to have this foreskin taken off.
Yeah.
I could have gone the rest of my life without the term cheesy wanker.
Well,
What kind of
Terms-
I just got
Terms
like,
I never
oh God,
got.
I don't
Pardon
know if I
my-
could take
pardon my
that
friend.
out of
Yeah,
my
say it.
head.
Things I never thought I'd hear today.
I'll be putting a catheter in a guy that's gross.
I am just telling you what the norm is today.
Right.
I do have a
Of
preference.
all the
but-
days to stop
No.
drinking.
All right, Andy, you better
Moving
take
on.
that back.
Yes.
You're funny.
Yeah. But sorry.
Sorry, Mom.
Are you saying sorry to your viewers, or are you saying sorry to?
I'll say sorry. Just wait, sorry.
I'm choking on the coconut over here. So. Yeah. So
Verse 24.
Thank
verse
you.
24. Join these men. Go through the right. Okay. So what is to be done? So we'll go back to 22. They will certainly hear that you have come. So do what we tell you. We have 4 men who are under a vow. Join these men, go through the rite of purification with them, and pay for the shaving of their heads. Thus all will know that there is nothing in what they have been told about you, but that you yourself observe and guard the law. But as for the Gentiles, who have become believers, we have sent a letter with our judgment that they should abstain from what has been sacrificed to idols, and from blood, and from what is strangled, and from sexual immorality. So remember, this was the deal. There's 3 things you're not supposed to do. Blood, eat something with blood, strangled by blood, eat something sacrificed to pagan idols, and basically visiting temple prostitutes. So all of those things are the direct things that you do when you go to a pagan temple and you worship demons. So basically, don't do the things that you would do when you would worship demons. So they're like, the guys who are traveling with you, like, just make sure we're going to send a letter with them that says they're not doing the things. You all go get cleaned up. Like, basically, like, they've been on the road. So they'll go through the rites of purification. So they'll go into the temple. They'll go into the ritual baths, what are called the mikvah. So they'll go in and they'll have a little tubby, little holy tubby time. They'll have his head shaved to kind of reinforce his Nazirite vow. Remember the Nazirites keep their head shaved. So he'll go back. He'll kind of make the Nazirite vow again. So all of this is a way of trying to appease the Jewish authorities that are looking hard at these guys, saying, like, but at the same time, they're not backing off their decision. They're not saying they need to be other than these Gentiles need to be other than they are. He says what we're actually concerned about you, Paul, and the Jews that are with you, because they're the ones that are really the Greeks that are traveling with him. Well, they're just Greeks, but you kind of are running the line of being an apostate. You're going to get yourself in trouble. So we really want you to look like a bright, shiny penny when you show up, like the good devout Jew that you are.
The super Jew.
So then Paul took the men, and the next day, having purified himself, he entered the temple with them, making public the completion of the days of purification, when the sacrifice would be made for each of them. When the 7 days were almost, so this is the 7 days, this is the festival of Pentecost. So when the 7 days were almost completed, the Jews from Asia, who had seen him in the temple, stirred up the whole crowd. Here we go again. Everywhere we go.
Right.
Like, can't we all just get along? No. So they seized him, shouting, "Fellow Israelites, help! This is the man who is teaching everyone." So remember, these are people from all over so this is the big Pentecost is one of the big 5 festivals. So these are people from all over the world. So these are Jews from these are kind of the Jews from Turkey. These are the Jews from Asia. So they're not even locals. They're just people who have heard of Paul and kind of want to make trouble. Everyone everywhere against. So this man has been teaching everyone everywhere against our people, our law, this place. More than that, he has actually brought Greeks into the temple and has defiled this holy place. So this is the argument against Paul. He's been bad-mouthing the temple, he's been bad-mouthing the law, and he's brought Greeks in here. So what is it with the Greeks? Why are they so there was actually a defilement of the temple that happened, and it was done by the Greeks. The emperor or the king, I can't remember who it was, but when they invaded Jerusalem, and he ended up sacrificing a pig on the altar. So they
That's
remember
bad.
they remember that.
That's bad.
Yeah. So like of all the people that you're walking into town with, you're walking into town with the Greeks. Now this was a long time ago,
Right, but they
but
don't-
still,
yeah.
like it's that. And they actually have a great name for it. It's like called the abomination of defilement or something like that. Like they have an actual name for this event that happened. And so that he's brought. So this is that's kind of the last straw. Like, okay, he's talking bad about this, talking about that, but he brought these Greeks with him and so that's when they talk about the defilement of the holy place. That's what they're talking about. They're referencing back to this event that happened. And so, for they had previously seen Trophimus the Ephesian with him in the city, and they supposed that Paul had brought him into this temple. So when they say "supposed" there, what they mean is they're kind of implicating. They're not kind of wondering. I wonder if he was with him. They're actually
know.
they're trying to make the connection. They're like, we don't know if he was with him or not, but we're going to try and link up like this kind of notorious Greek guy that's been running around with Paul.
It's an accusation.
Exactly right. Yes, thank you. And then all the city was aroused, and aroused. What an awful.
I have
like,
disturbed. I
like,
have disturbed.
Disturbed. That's much better. Yeah.
Yes.
So they were. Yeah. So again, remember, it's against the law to kill anybody, but if you can get a good mob going and somebody gets killed, it was a mob.
Right.
like, so this is again, they're trying to crank the mob handle here. And the people rushed together. They seized Paul and dragged him out of the temple, or dragged him out of the temple, and immediately the doors were shut. And so remember way back when, in the beginning, there's the temple complex has its own guards. So they kind of struck a bargain with the Roman authorities that says, okay, they have kind of the local cops in the temple so that the Romans don't have to okay, but if there's trouble, we're like, the Romans are very clear. If there's trouble, we're coming in. If there's a mob, we're gonna shut this down. So the closing the doors is a really that's no, nothing to see here, nothing to see here.
Right.
So he's out of the temple, but he's still in the temple complex. So they basically closed the doors so that the Romans can look and I guess everything's okay. There's nothing bad going on. So they're so while they were trying to kill him, word came to the tribune of the cohort. So this is the guy who's running the tribune of the cohort is the head of the cohort. So
The Romans.
yeah, the Roman guard, 700 people in the cohort. So he's a boss. So all of Jerusalem was in an uproar, and immediately he took soldiers and centurions and ran down to them. And when they saw the tribune and the soldiers, they stopped beating Paul. Oh, what? Us? Him? No.
We're not doing nothing.
We're not doing nothing. Exactly.
Paul gets his ass kicked every other day.
He does. Yes.
Holy cow.
Yep. Yeah. There's a great piece of art that somebody did of Paul at the end of his life, and they looked at all the different times that he was beaten and all the different wounds that it specifies, and it's that when his nose it's a broken nose, and it's all this, and all the scars on his head from when he was beaten in the head, and his leg wounds and all this, and it's just a beautiful piece because you realize
what he endured
was one gnarly dude by the you know what I mean, he was really beat up. And it's one of the things I always think about is Paul is most popular in Philippi. Philippi is really a military retirement town, and it's you get it because all these old grizzled war veterans who have retired, they look like Paul looks like them, and they look like Paul. You know what I mean? Like this kid, he can take a beating, and he's he has he had street cred with these old veterans and that's kind of the church that loves them most, I think, is probably Philippi, and so you get this sense of why they probably really
they relate to him.
Yeah, and they just just that idea of shared struggle. So while they were trying to kill, word to the tribune, and immediately they took soldiers, centurions, and then the tribune came, and when they saw the tribune and the soldiers, they stopped. What? Who? Me? What? And then then the tribune came, arrested him, and ordered him to be bound in 2 chains. So I always love this. It's well, the guy who's getting beaten must have done something, so we're going to arrest him. It's he must be the problem, so we'll arrest him first, even though he inquired that what he had done. So some of the crowd shouted one thing and some another. They can't even get their story straight because they don't even really, they don't even really know why they're. But it's is this a private fight or can anybody join? So they're just jumping in.
It's an incited riot.
Yeah, exactly.
Based on nothing.
And he could not learn the facts because of the uproar. He ordered him to be brought into the barracks. And when Paul came to the steps of the violence of the mob, was so great that he had to be carried by the soldiers. So basically, he'd been beaten so badly he couldn't walk anymore. That's what that means. So they had to actually carry him into the barracks, and the crowd kept following him, shouting, "Away with him!" And just as Paul was about to be brought into the barracks, he said to the tribune, "May I say something to you?" Now the tribune replied, "You know Greek?" So, and he said, "Then you must not be the Egyptian who recently stirred up the revolt and led 4,000 assassins out into the wilderness." And so what is he? So he's referencing this idea. So remember, there's always one of the things about Jerusalem, and one of the things Jerusalem becomes that by 70 AD, so in less in about 20-ish years, the Romans are going to level Jerusalem.
Right.
They're going to level the temple. They're going to destroy the temple, and then about another 80 years later, they're going to come in and Jerusalem will cease to exist. They will literally destroy every building in Jerusalem, and for hundreds of years, Jerusalem will not exist. It will, and that Jews actually for about 400 years will be forbidden from actually going to Jerusalem.
Wow.
Except for one day a year that they go and they can walk around and they can cry and then they have to leave.
And that's what really caused the diaspora to Europe.
And that's what caused it, exactly. That's what caused it. That's why the Jews are without a place, a people without a place, is because of. And the thing is, the reason the Romans did it, it's not like they didn't want to keep a tax base. It's that they just kept having these messiahs, kept having these revolts again and again and again, and that they were so ungovernable that they just had it. It's like it's easier to just because they were sending so many resources trying to keep peace. And so this guy,
I never knew that that's why.
yeah,
That's fascinating.
yeah. So that's the Egyptians. So this Egyptian guy that he's talking about is another one of these false messiahs that roused up about 4,000 people who ambushed a bunch of Romans, killed a bunch of Romans. The Romans came back. Killed, drove them into the wilderness, killed all of them, crucified them all. So 4,000. Let's envision 4,000 crosses. Like, you know what I mean? Crucified every one of them, like out in the wilderness. Like, that. I mean, it's not like they didn't know how to make a point. You know what I mean? Like they were.
It's like Barabbas after Barabbas after Barabbas.
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
And
right.
what's the name of that the place that they had to set them on top of a mountain and nobody could get there.
In Masada.
That's yes.
Yeah, so Masada will happen in a couple hundred years or so. Masada will happen, but it's the same thing. So these are the Maccabeans, which is another Jewish sect. They will kind of hang. There's a great old '80s movie called Masada, which is it's actually, if you're interested, but it's basically this. They
True story.
It's a true story, and it's a the movie is actually true to the. It's pretty good to the story, and they just basically. It's this mountain fortress. They encamp on this mountain fortress, and in revolt to the Romans. The Romans show up. They literally build a ramp all the way up the mountain, and they invade and before they can just before the doors are blown open, all the Jews there kill themselves.
Right.
It's a mass suicide because. What happens if the Jews, crucifixion, right? Like you're gonna, we know what happened because this is they've been doing this for a couple hundred years now. Like everybody knows what's gonna happen. So they just, so there's this, and within that, and it had and again, this is why it's such a like this is just for the Romans. This is just a drag, man. Why? This is just right here we go again. So
the place was like inaccessible, like high on top of a mountain. But the thing about the Romans, why the Romans were so powerful, was they were such great engineers.
Yep.
Right.
So they built this damn ramp. It took them 10 years maybe to build the ramp.
Yep.
They said, bullshit, you're not going to say that.
Right.
We will defeat you. And they did. And Romans, they're stubborn buggers. And they did it. After 10 years, they did it. And when the Jews knew they were going to die, they killed themselves.
That's crazy.
Sorry about that.
No,
Why
it's
is that?
great. And it's interesting. Like I think what it doesn't say in the text is as interesting as what it does say, is because remember this is Dr. Luke writing all this down, he's right there with Paul writing all this down. It's like everybody knew, he didn't. Luke doesn't have to explain this in the text because everybody knew who this Egyptian cat was that did it. Like this is like headline news. You know what I mean? Like. It's like they don't have to explain, like major news events, and it's like he doesn't have. He's just saying like, oh, so the Tribune is thinking that this must be one of those guys, or the guy or actually the guy that stirred up all the trouble. And that's why everybody's so mad, because that would make sense, right? Finally, the leader of that, they've caught him. They caught Jesse James. That's a big deal. So, and he's like, wait, you're not that guy? So, because first you're speaking Greek, so that you're clearly not that guy. And so then you are not the Egyptian who recently stirred up the revolt and led the 4,000 assassins in the wilderness? And Paul replied, I am a Jew from Tarsus of Cilicia.
Fellowship.
Cilicia, thank you.
Sorry.
A citizen of an important city. And when you read important, read Roman. I beg you, let me speak to the people. And when he had given him permission, you're Roman. So like there's absolutely no, the tribune didn't know he's a Roman at this point. Like there's no, and there's no expectation that he was. He's just
a citizen.
right,
More important.
exactly. And so so all of a sudden the response changes significantly because the expectation was he was kind of another Jew among all the other Jews. It's like, okay, we're gonna, we have a revolt to put down. It's like, oh no, you're a Roman citizen. All right. Oh, you want to talk to him? Okay, sure. So Paul stood on the steps and motioned to the people in silence. And then there was a great hush, and he addressed them in Hebrew language, saying, that's not quite. So he would have probably talked to them in
Yiddish?
no
Aramaic?
Aramaic. Thank you. Yeah. So it would have been in Aramaic. So it basically the better translation is the language of the Hebrews. So like the language that they locally speak. So which would have been Aramaic. So where are we at? Can we keep going? We're gonna keep going into 22.
Oh yeah, we've time.
Oh, yeah, great.
We're
Awesome.
off.
So
This is the good part. This
it
when
is
he
good.
tells
Yeah.
the story.
So he's standing on the steps. He's got the prefect behind him. He's got he's at the barracks. So like he's a little safer. So Paul's going to give it his best shot here. Brothers and fathers, listen to the defense that I now make to you. And when they heard him addressing in Hebrew, they became even more quiet. And he said, because they didn't even know at this point, like, they were the Jews have been like, oh, he's been hanging with these Greeks. Like
For
they
years.
didn't even know he wasn't a local or it wasn't a Jew
Yeah.
necessarily. They think he's almost a
He'd
foreigner.
been in Greece for so long.
Yeah.
They didn't remember him as a Pharisee.
Right,
From
yeah.
his early days.
Right. So this is so it's like, oh, wait a minute. Like we something's going on here. I am a Jew born in Tarsus of Cilicia but brought up in this city at the feet of Gamaliel. So we've heard Gamaliel
Yeah.
referred to a couple
Yeah.
times. You can't underestimate how big a deal Gamaliel is. I mean, if you read the Talmud today, half of it is quotes from Gamaliel. Not half, but a significant portion of it is quotes from Gamaliel. Like, it's not just significant then. This is 2,000 years later,
Right.
and
They're
the
still
Jewish
doing it.
tradition still references this teacher. So he's this big of a deal. Educated strictly according to our ancestral law, being zealous for God. And so just as all of you are today. So that's kind of a key word. It's not, zealous isn't just an emotional state. It's one of the actual sects of, there are 4 sects within Judaism: the Essenes, the Zealots, the Sadducees, and the Pharisees. So Paul's saying he was actually a zealot. Like he was actually, which was strictly devout, very devout, but also very militant. Like
Isn't Simon the Zealot too?
Simon is
Yes.
right. Simon the
Yeah.
Zealot, exactly. So, also pretty militant. Like he is. So this is not only has he kept the Pharisaical law, but he's got some. This is again some bona fides. Like
Yeah.
I persecuted this way up to the point of death by binding both men and women and putting them in prison, as the high priest and the whole council of elders can testify about me. Remember, these are the same guys. He was holding
Yep.
Stephen's cloak, working for these guys when they were stoning Stephen.
He's
So-
making the case that I was a persecutor
right,
of the way.
exactly.
And so he's making like that extra thing. I was one of them guys, and I have been converted myself. So listen to me when I'm saying to you, right?
Right. From them I also received letters to the brothers in Damascus, and I went there in order to bind those who were there and bring them back to Jerusalem for punishment. So what is Paul doing here?
What he just said. He's explaining to him that I was just like you. I persecuted these people. I did not believe in this. I was brought up just as faithful in the religion as you are. if not more so, because I was trained by Gamaliel. Is that how you
Yep.
say it?
Yeah.
And but now he's going to tell the story of what happened to him. He's preparing them to show where the switch happened,
Right.
why he switched.
But what do we call that?
Conversion.
His testimony. He's giving a testimony.
That's right. He's
Conversion
giving
testimony.
He's giving his testimony. Like, and it's one of these things where, you know, I mean, so there's lots of different, you know, there's lots of different things that get done with kind of the idea of testimony within the church, but I think it's one of those things that it is, you know, like, so Len Sweet, who I have a lot of affection for as a biblical scholar and all that sort of stuff, he makes a point of, like, he really believes every person should know their birth story. He says, but if your parents are still alive, like, I was in a graduate school course with him. He's like, if your parents are still alive, you need to go ask them your birth story. Like, it was a Tuesday night, it was raining, you know, you came into this world screaming, you came into this world quiet, you were like, every child should know their birth story. And I was like, says, because your birth story and your faith story are going to, you have another birth that you're going to have in this world, and you need to know your first story so that you can properly tell your second story. And I thought it was such well, that's weird, and I'm a Yankee, and there's no way I'm asking my parents about my birth story, so thank you very much. But I really appreciated the idea, because, and this is really Paul's birth story as a
born again, born into
it
Christianity.
is right. It is, and so when we talk about kind of the born again experience, like, I don't particularly, like, you know, I'm not a born again guy. I don't have a born again experience. I can't point to the point on the day on the map in which I can say, you know, I did not believe and now I believe. Like, I don't have that, and I don't necessarily, but I do have it. But I can tell you my testimony.
Right.
Like, I can tell you the story of how I came to faith. Like, I can tell you how Jesus became this foreign character, and then at one point became incredibly intimate.
Your mother was labored for a hell of a long time with you, that's all.
Yeah, I'm sure of that. Like, yeah,
It's the comparison.
yeah. She's still laboring. Like, who are we kidding? Like, yeah, sainted woman. But this, you know, like, it's like, I just always love this as an image, and kind of always want to point it out, because it's like, when we're really pressed, when we're really against it, come back to our birth story. You know, like, there's something, and I think it's true, like, in our own faith life, like, when, like what we were talking about earlier. Actually, it's right what we were talking about earlier. You know, like when we're, you know, when we don't know, like, when we don't know what to do, when we feel afflicted, when we're sad, mad, angry, like when we're challenged, when we're tempted, to come back to our birth story and come back to the story of how we were born into the faith, and how we found our way, you know, the walk that we found our way in, and the miracles that were in that, and the return to that, and that, you know, and I think Paul just gives a beautiful testament of that in this, you know, because of all the things he could say, like, he's like, what am I going to tell you? I'm going to tell you how this works for me.
Yeah,
Like,
I love it.
you know.
Verse 6, his conversion, right?
While I was on my way and approaching Damascus, about noon, a great light from heaven suddenly shone about me. I fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to me, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? I answered, Who are you, Lord? And then he said to me, I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom you are persecuting. And now those who were with me saw the light, but did not hear the voice of the one who was speaking to me. I asked, What am I to do, Lord? And the Lord said to me, Get up and go to Damascus. There you will be told everything that has been assigned to you to do. And since I could not see because of the brightness of the light, those who were with me took me by the hand and led me to Damascus. So this is incredibly personal, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is his story. A certain Ananias, who was a devout man according to the law and well spoken by all the Jews living there, came to me, standing beside me, and he said, Brother Saul, regain your sight. In that very hour I regained my sight and saw him. And then he said, The God of our ancestors has chosen you to know his will, to see the righteous one, and to hear his own voice. For you will be his witness to all the world of what you have seen and heard. And now why do you delay? Get up, be baptized, and have your sins washed away, calling on his name.
I think my sign's coming.
No, you can't do
I
that.
can't.
No, sit down. You're so cute. She's like, I'm in my rocker. I know
Right,
you
yeah.
can't. That's what I'm saying.
Tie my
Right, yeah.
You're like a little lady in your rocker.
Yeah.
I love you.
My cane.
Sorry.
I'm
With 20s,
sorry.
I couldn't, I
So-
can't get up either, it was damn thing.
All right, where were we?
So, so he's referencing Ananias to say to them, to where he got his charge. And what does he say? What does it say? It says, the God of our ancestors. So notice he has just taken all of them and looped them into his story.
Yep.
And Ananias has now brought them, like he's now they're all like, it's, they're my ancestors, they're your ancestors,
Right.
they're Ananias' ancestors, like this Yahweh God whom we have all followed, and we have all, like, I got this legitimately from him. And after that, he returned to Jerusalem, and while I was praying at the temple, I fell into a trance and saw Jesus saying to me, "Hurry and get out of Jerusalem quickly, because they will not accept your testimony about me." And I said, "Lord, they themselves know that in every synagogue I imprisoned and beat those who believed in you. And while the blood of your witness Stephen was shed, I myself was standing by, approving and keeping the coats of those who killed him." And when he said to me, I always think of that, like, if you've ever, like, listened to addicts, like, say, like, they have to kind of sometimes reference, like, the worst thing that they ever felt like they did.
Which
You know,
part?
that's right, and they have to, like, constantly kind of touch back to that point of remembering the fact that they, not as a point of pride, but as a point of just they were kind of reinforcing their own humility,
How low
like
they
their own
went.
powerlessness
Oh,
in
I never want to
things.
visit that place
Like
again.
he always, like Paul always mentions that I was holding the cloaks where they killed Stephen, and I always feel like that. It always has that sense to me of like he's like saying, "This is how horrible I was. Like I did a lot of horrible things. The worst thing I did is,
Oh my God, what did I do?
right? Yeah." And he it's a way of kind of him keeping his own humility before him. The witness to Stephen was shed. I myself was standing by, approving and keeping the coats of those who killed him. And he said to me, "Go, for I will send you far away to the Gentiles." So Paul is, he's kind of told the story so that he can kind of come back to Jerusalem. That I know I'm not going to be accepted in Jerusalem, but I want you to know that,
This is what I've been doing and why.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Like, and notice again, like as we've been talking about, how, like, who's the real actor here? It's the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Right. The Holy Spirit was, he was being faithful in listening to the Sanhedrin that were sending him out to persecute the Christians,
Right.
and then Jesus came to him and said, and then Ananias had the word for him, and from the Holy Spirit, and then he had the vision in the temple and said,
Yeah.
"Get out and go to the Gentiles," like again and again and again. What's Paul doing other than just like, okay,
Yeah.
yep,
Yeah.
okay, yep? Like, I mean, he's like, it is all God's operation with him, and
Right.
it's
Right.
like, if you've probably all heard, like, I have a phrase that I say probably too much, but it's like, but I always think it's important to kind of, is to remember that this is not our process. This is God's process with us.
Right.
And that we have to continually be like, oh, okay, Lord, how am I being open? How am I being bulwarked? How am I, like, we want to be like, all right, I'm going to work out my redemption. I'm going to
This
do
is
my
the only
thing.
way
Like,
I've been surviving.
Yeah.
It's just by going with whatever,
Right.
wherever I'm pointed.
right. And that's,
That's it. That's the only way I survived
so,
the last few months.
All right. Do we want to
Last
try and
few
get through?
years.
What time is
Where
it?
we-
It's
It's
like 7
7.
on the nose.
7 now. Okay. All right. So we'll.
22?
So we're at 22. We'll pick it up at 22.
We're at 22.
Yeah.
22.
That's where
We
we're at.
are.
Yep.
Here's
So
your Bible.
we'll pick it up next week. Okay.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
That's 65,
I
65,
forgot the Bible. I thought it was
75,
in the
75.
car.
It's song.
I gotta get a different one. That one's too heavy. That's a heavy one. I'm gonna get a lighter one for this. Like I like it for home because I can
Yeah.
like, read
It's got
the-
all that right.
Yeah.
Let's go.
But to like just carry,